is like, let's go. I want to just get started right away. Moira, what I would like you to do is to go ahead and introduce yourself. I think in this, I could go on and on about how amazing you are. What excites me about you is I remember, I think was it post-COVID? Maybe before COVID? I can't remember, but whatever it was, I was so excited about the work that you were doing because as someone who guides families on college trips specifically, I really felt like there was this missing. There's like this traditional like college visits and parents, spend a lot of time and a lot of money and they go full out on these college visits, which often I find very little reward on the investment, meaning that perhaps they get a tour and, God bless all these kids, they're amazing, but often student led, it depends on who you get on that student led tour. The information is often, it's not that it's vague, it's just it's not specific to, at least in our practice, we really train our students to really gear in to what they're looking and needing for themselves. And so a big tour and, you stay at the hotel, is it the right hotel? You eat at the restaurant, is it the one where the students go? Like all of those things. And so when I found out what you were doing, I was just beside myself with excitement. I think I even said to you, gosh darn it, why didn't I think of this? Why didn't I create this? Because I'm also an entrepreneur and love sharing information with parents. So I just feel really lucky to have you on our Ask Me Anything. So let me have you introduce yourself, and then we'll just dive into questions parents have.
Perfect. Well, first off, thanks so much for inviting me. And yes, we connected. We talked for so long that first time that we met. I love your beautiful smile and your friendly face, and we were both energetic. And probably the reason why you didn't want to do this is it's bloody hard to do. But I think we both commiserated too, in the sense that we've been on college visits that went array. And I think I have three. Two are recent college grads, and one is a current sophomore. And I think my frustration when I went out with my first on a college visit, I was absolutely so naive and frustrated at the end because I thought, oh, great, I'm with my oldest son. We're on a college visit. I don't have to do laundry. I don't have to work. I don't have to make dinner for everyone. It's just he and I, and I'm going to learn so much more about him and what he wants to do with his life and where he wants to live for the next 4 years. And we went out on this college visit, and as you said, colleges do a great job marketing their institutions, marketing their people, and we've traveled and we've moved 8+ times in the time that we've been a family. So I'm very good at research and acting like a local and getting that information. I didn't do that for the first college visit. So we left the formal information tour and information session, and we ended up at this crappy lunch spot. My son just looked absolutely frustrated because he had the formal tour, as we say, like the Broadway play, but he wanted the dress rehearsal. He wanted to know what it's really like to live and learn on the college campus. And that's where I felt I failed him. You talk about, when you talk about fit with students, it's academic fit, which you're an expert at, and guidance counselors are an expert at. Financial fit, where parents come into play, and financial advisors. And then there's that social fit. And as a parent, when I heard some of this statistics, a third of the students transferred due to lack of fit, my thoughts in my head were like 250,000 plus, and you're going to transfer? Like, how can I help you find a place where you will thrive, not only in the classroom, but outside of the classroom? So what I quickly did is great at research. I went out and connected with college students. And the first thing that made me realize that we're onto something was that every college student said, I wish I had college scoops when I was looking, because it's student generated. It has a host of student information that would allow them to learn about schools through the lens of a student, through the ears of a student, and get all the questions that they wanted to ask that they would ask their best friend. So we started asking them, what were the lessons learned? What do you wish you knew when arriving as a freshman at orientation? If you had your best friend come and visit, where would you take them? So we gathered all this great content, put it together on a website. Then we were asked questions that are that's your expertise. Like, should I take an SAT, ACT? I'm like, that's not what we do, but we know people who do it really well. So we started a podcast platform or a guest blog where experts like yourself would come in and answer all those questions. Um, but it's been a journey. But the thing that we realize is college students and all the students we reach out to are like, this is so valuable. It's a de-stressor. Parents have said, it helps them with cuts down the research. There's a whole host of information that's available with a couple clicks versus spending hours and hours researching this information for not only what you can do on campus, but what you can do in the surrounding area. So it's been a journey. I love it. I love it because the response we get from current college students, the response we get from our community of educational consultants, high school students and parents, so that's kind of why we did it. And I've used it for my kids, not only when they started the college search, but I still use it. I used it for my daughter who was a senior. It was easy to like book a family weekend or book a visit through all the information that we had. And to be perfectly honest, all her friends were like, Mrs. McCullough is the coolest. She knows all the hot spots to go. So it also gets me in. It makes me feel younger with the kids.
That's great. One of the things that I have found too is that even if people aren't going to visit the college, that it has some inside kind of scoop, and you can use Google Earth and play around a little bit with like, how far is this to that, and to be able to research colleges, especially getting down to decision time as well. So being able to use it in that capacity too has been really helpful. Let's see.
And
I
that's
want to first make sure we have any questions. Of course, this is the chat. Okay. I don't see any questions in the chat, but I want to give everybody a second. We do have some questions that people asked ahead of time, so I'll go ahead with those, but I do have my chat open if people want to ask any specific questions. I mean, we have a real expert here on this, so take advantage. Let me go to my list. Let's
and
see. I think
Laura.
one. Were you going to say something
Well,
more?
Laura, you mentioned something that I think is really important too. The other fact is that not everyone can go and afford to visit a college too. And you mentioned that. Like, how do you get to know a college from afar? And it's really trying to find those resources that can not only help a student, but also parents, because students have their own questions in their mind. And I think that's the big thing I learned as a parent. Like the students are worried about, will I make friends? What am I going to do on the weekend? Am I prepared? What do you need to know for freshman, orientation? So they have their list of questions. My questions as a parent were very different. They're like, can we afford this? Foreign done. I always said to my kids, foreign done. But is that realistic given the major that they're looking at? So you, when you look to buy a house or buy a car, it's a major investment, and we ask our best friends what they like about certain neighborhoods and why do they like that certain car. And I think that's the same type of thing as a parent. You kind of have to look at it from the student's lens, because they have their questions that they want to ask and they want to ask their peer group, and parents have their questions that they want to ask. And sometimes you can't get to that campus. Like we couldn't afford to go visit every campus. So how can you find a platform that is timely, that's student generated content that you trust, that has information that's relevant for any aspect of the college search? So I think that's really important and accessible. And college visits can be and are expensive. So it's time, energy, and that go into that. So I think finding a platform where you can find all this information easily is really important as well if you can't visit.
One of the questions that I have here is, so we talked about the tour and we talked about information session. I often encourage families to use kind of the self-guided tour
Mhm.
so that they can really curate what they want. But what's your opinion? Like, if you're going to do the tour or the information center, what is the next thing? Because I will often also say that you have done such a brilliant job that there's actually a lot of choices in college scoops to like navigate. So what have you found is
Absolutely.
the most important?
Well, I think one is making sure you don't overschedule yourself. I know that, as I said, I was highly energetic, and I was like, great, we can go and visit this school in the morning, this school in the afternoon. My big thing that I think is important, and I know you as well feel this way. You need to learn about the surrounding community. So after you go on that formal tour and information session, make sure that you have a block of time where you and your student are just walking around, kind of with unscripted. I found the best advice that I had from a seasoned parent was ask for directions from a student, um, because you learn a lot about the community. You learn a lot about their response. I mean, one campus, my son asked a question, and it was very much like, "Go down there and take a right." When my daughter asked, they were like, "Hey, why don't we take you there? Oh, you play lacrosse. Oh, here's a great couple activities or different buildings that you should see." And all of a sudden, they had this conversation. And if that does happen, as a parent, I would always step back and kind of allow my student to kind of go off with those students and ask some other questions that they may have on their minds. So I think asking for directions, making sure that you're not just not running off and kind of walking around and seeing it outside of the formal tour. I think it's really important to look at the surrounding area. As we said, this is where they're going to be for the next 4 years or so. What is the surrounding town like? Um, Take time. Is there an activity or an interest that your student has that they would want to do outside of the formal classroom environment? Are they athletic? Are they walkers? Are they bikers? Do they like theater? Um, Go around to look at the local pharmacy, where they're going to get their haircut. Take the time to explore the surrounding community. I know at one point, my youngest said, "There's nothing here." I thought, yes, there's nothing in this town. you know, is that what is this place going to be? Is this where you will thrive and that where you will enjoy being on the weekends? So I think it's really important to make sure that you're not doing a drive-through after the tour and information session, because you are taking time and energy and money to go look at these colleges and make use of that, because you may not have an opportunity to go back. So that's the biggest, key point that I would say. The other thing is we ended up going to, as I said, a restaurant that no one was at. There were no students that were there. There were no faculty or staff. So that kind of left us with, where is everyone? What are they doing? So it's really important, if you can reach out, if you have any former classmates, if your student has any former classmates, people that they were teammates with, family, friends that are there. It was always helpful to call ahead and ask to speak with that student, if they had time to take your student around, you and your student around. And as a parent, I think it's important to also let your student have that conversation, meet that student, but maybe take a step back. And I always made the excuse I forgot something in the car. So I would allow, my son or daughter to have a conversation with that person and ask some questions that they may not want to ask in front of me, or, just have a more open dialogue, shall we say.
I think I have 4 kids, and in reflection, I often have a hard time guiding my families because I sometimes feel like the visits may be most helpful after students get in. And I would love, I mean, you have so much experience now, that just might be me. Do you have opinions on, do you wait once you get in? Do you go before? How do you decide which ones to go to? I often have families who will be like, yeah, I'm in, we're in California, so we went to go see Stanford and UCLA or whatever. And I'm like, wow, that's a pretty big visit for a highly selective school. And
Mhm.
I just struggle with how to advise. I'm dying to know what you say to
Well,
parents.
it's not easy. Like, if it was an easy question, that I think the biggest thing that I would say that we would both kind of recommend is, like, start local. Um, don't go on a plane ride away first. Start local and take the name off the school and just explore those local communities, local schools that were a 2 3 hour drive away, that are easy. And the student may say, oh, why are we going to look at that school, that's an hour away, I don't even want to go there. You're not actually just, you're trying to learn more about where you want to live and learn. So I think it's important because I'm sure you found that too with your kids. You know, they learn a lot with each college visit of what they like and they don't like. And I think what you don't like is as important as what you like.
Mhm.
And then by the time it was almost gaining the confidence as a student, thinking like, okay, by the fourth visit, they found their groove. They felt more comfortable asking questions, getting outside of their comfort zone. So that really kind of played in. If you were spending time and money, taking time off of work, getting on a plane, going to that school that may be a really important school, maybe on your list of like top 5 or something. I think it was important to like go through that learning curve and gain the confidence to really ask the questions and explore what you want in your, college experience. So start local, take the name off the school. It also allows a parent to kind of define their role. I found that what I was like on the first college visit supporting my son, I was very different on the third or fourth college visit.
Mm.
Um, I think it's hard not to get overly excited and involved. And I realized like, no, actually they should pick the tour guide that they want. That they, my son would look at me and say, "Who do you think we should go on a tour with?" I don't know. That's you. You pick. Where would you like to go? I think as you go through the college search, the students, as I say, gain more confidence, and they're like, "Okay, you have a role." Parents, it's easy to be a logistical planning manager, but I also said to my students, what do you want to get out of this college visit? Is there something that you would like to go see? What's important on this college visit? The first visit, they don't know. Their eyes are like wide open. They don't even know what to ask. But by the fourth, they're like, I really want to go see and meet, go to this building, go to the cafe, dining hall, or I want to meet and watch a baseball practice. That's important. I don't think you get that on the first visit.
That's great.
What was I'm sure as a parent, you see that transition too as
Yeah,
well.
I remember that really well. And I was very much, I mean, I had my kids were different too. I had a daughter who was pretty program driven, like she knew she wanted small liberal arts. So that was pretty easy. I had a son who wasn't interested. He just wanted to go to see Boulder. So that was pretty easy. And then my youngest was pretty, he really was program driven. So being able to find a place that was really specific to the program that was being offered. And
Mhm.
so I think, and we at e.Merging, we're really rigorous with our kids having a strong understanding of what that college offers based on their academic interests. And we do a lot of work around that. But with that said, my daughter Lexi, she ended up at College of Worcester. We did the whole Ohio tour because we had done kind of the local, and then we decided, okay, we're going to go to Ohio. There's a bunch of small liberal arts schools, so we can do a bunch of them at once. And I mean,
Mhm.
it's hilarious. One of her schools that she took off the list was Denison because she's like, I can't walk up that hill every day. She's like, I can't walk up that hill. And then when she finally decided Worcester, and by the way, this is when she had gotten in too, which I liked. And then finally, she had to study at the coffee shops in the neighborhood, like in Worcester, to be like, I gotta find like my place, because she'd always in high school had studied at all the coffee shops. She needed to know that there was a place to do that. And it turns out Worcester has adorable coffee shops all over.
Right.
Now, again, this was towards the end of the decision making, because I don't just love when students go on their trips and come back and do or don't like something based on they didn't have this or they didn't have that, without like the full scope of program and everything else. So that's why I just have
Well,
mixed feelings, which is why I love College Scoops even more, because it helps us get to know a sense of what is being offered.
and to your point, I remember my older son said he wanted to look at this particular school, and it was a plane right away. And I said, convince me why that's important to go visit that school right now in your journey, because he was at the beginning of the college search with the college list. And he couldn't articulate clearly why that was a good fit for him. And you'll love this. I said to him, well, why don't you apply with your own money
Moira,
And
I'm
then
going
if
to
you
let
get
you
in,
keep talking because somebody
yes,
is pounding on my
okay,
door, of course, right
perfect.
this second. So keep
Okay.
keep keep talking.
So I let my student basically apply to that school, and I said, if you get in, then we can decide whether you would like to go to that school. So I think it's really important um, to also kind of have an open dialogue with your student to make sure that on those college visits, there is a reason why they feel that that's the right college for them, both in and outside of the classroom. And that's something that if you start to visit several schools that are local and you're learning about what you like and don't like about a particular campus, and like you said, your daughter knew that she wanted a coffee spot. That was the best place where she learned, where she could study. That was really important. I don't know if that would have happened on the first college visit that she would have articulated that. It
Right.
was because she went to several. I know another mistake, you mentioned it in the beginning. Um, you know, we all think our kids are, really rock stars. And, to go to Stanford or Yale on the first college visit, may set the expectation a little bit too high. So that's why I say, look at all different types of colleges, take off the name, go and explore, ask all the questions, make all the mistakes that we do make as parents or students when reviewing certain you know, uh, college campuses. And then I think the beauty of it is that you see how your student gains the confidence. And then finally, I know with one of my kids, they were undecided. By the sixth visit, he raised his hand proud to say, yes, I am undecided. Where in the beginning, it was like, I'm embarrassed because I'm undecided. Um, as he went through and talked to more and more people, they became more confident and asked the questions that were important to them. And that's what I meant. You learned a lot about what is important to your student, and they then realize what a commitment it is for the parents making a commitment, financial commitment to a particular school. So I think both students and parents through the journey from the day one to where they end up, it's very different, and that's because of the research and the ability to have an open dialogue. Um, it also allows the parent to say, that school may not be in our realm, in terms of financially. So you set your expectations kind of earlier so that students have a list that's a realistic list then by the end.
That's great. I have a question from chat, and I think let's see how I will ask this. So I'm not sure if College Scoops does this as much, but the question is, do you have any advice for researching majors, like for instance, business versus engineering outside of college tours? Now, I know we are super rigorous in how we have students do that, and we call it deep dive research within the websites. But I guess the crossover would be is do you give advice on that kind of research, specifically maybe departmental tours or
Mhm.
finding how to find and reach out to professors if you have a student who really wants to, or for instance afterwards, like sometimes students may go, say they go visit and they're like, wow, okay, I think I'm really interested, but I'm not sure if I want business or engineering. What's the
Right.
next step, if that's even something you guys do?
You know what? And that's where I would say that's your area of expertise. What we do is we'll talk to students who maybe came in as an engineering and then quickly realize that, that's not the right major. And here's how we went about um, here's the process that I went through in terms of changing my major. And here's how easy it was to do that or difficult. Many of the students, that we talk to, we ask them all these questions and they're like, you have academic advisors. Um, Depending upon the number of students, we reach a whole host of students, and that information that we have is from a collective number of, students. And people will say, what, the academic advisors are really helpful in that, or the peer leaders or the business fraternity, reach out to the business
Mm,
fraternity. So students are sharing their experiences of what they encountered and helpful resources that are actually available to them. Some will say, yes, we know that the college thinks that, this particular writing lab is really helpful, but actually it's really hard to get into and we never had the ability to. But here are some other additional resources that are helpful. So from that perspective, the student testimonials and insights, that's what we have, and we're continuously evolving. So to your point, we may get to the point where we're like, okay, if you're an engineering major, click here and here's some helpful tips from engineering students. So we're always taking feedback from educational consultants and our student and parent community, and college students to say, these are some other helpful categories that may help students who are looking at these particular schools.
Great. That leads me to talk to me about your ambassadors and um, what would some of you, what advice do your College Scoop ambassadors have
Yeah.
for
Oh my
college
gosh.
bound students?
Oh, it's so that's the favorite part of what we do because students are so willing to share. As I said, they're like, I wish I had this because it would have de-stressed the process. And what do you need from us? How can we help you? So when we reach out to students, they're either, sharing their information with us in questionnaires and in any of our brand ambassador or campus interviews. We have student Q&A videos. And here's a couple different examples of like, and I wrote down a whole bunch of things, like Case Western, a student basically, and this has been pretty consistent throughout, college courses are much harder than high school courses. So like learning how to study takes time. Um, Breathe in and enjoy your first week. Like
Mm.
um, another really important thing, and this was actually depending upon the schools, it was interesting because it contradicted each other. Some were like, don't stress out about making a lot of friends at first. It's important to get adjusted and get into your routine and um, go to your classes, meet with your professors, and that was a student at Wake Forest. In the same sense, a student at Vanderbilt said, all I did was focus on the academics at first.
Mm.
I didn't take the time to go to the club fairs and to introduce myself to the student body. So at the end of like Thanksgiving, I was lonely. I didn't meet anyone. I was stressed out and I felt overwhelmed because all I focused was on academics. So that was a great example of like, there's a balance here. Lafayette College, one of our ambassadors said, there's peer mentors. And I think you as a parent, I know me as a parent, I would always say to my kids, reach out to your peer mentors or your advisor. And people are like, they'd roll their eyes and think they wouldn't do it. Lafayette College, our ambassador Megan said, they have peer mentors for their first year, and they were really valuable if you take the time to actually reach out to those students. Many of the colleges have pre-orientation programs. I know at University of Michigan, it's an M-Lead program where you can sign in to move in earlier if you help other students, your
Mm.
peers move in. Um, a benefit of that, University of Michigan, 7,000 in a class. You get to move in a week early. Imagine that as a parent, rolling your kid to Ann Arbor and being able to move them in earlier. And
Mm.
then that student had a whole host of friends that when they went to the dining hall, they recognized their faces. It was an easier transition for them. Um, Another student at Cal Poly was again talking about the free tools, the writing lab, the learning lab that are really important. I think many students are afraid to ask for help in the beginning. It's maybe viewed as a they don't want to show that they might not be great at writing, or they don't want to see people going in the learning lab. I think what all of our ambassadors has said, everyone's in the same shoes, and they're all feeling insecure, and there's people there that are there to help, and the colleges have done a great job of setting up networks and clubs and peer mentoring and advisors and TAs or business fraternities to get involved in that will help students as they transition from first semester to second semester.
I love that. So the idea, and I'm really going to honor this 30
Yes.
minute, we don't have any more questions, but I will just say that what I love about how you ended this is that we have this in our, if Hannah was on here, she'd say this too, is often when we work with these students, sometimes freshmen through senior year, and once they get into college, we don't hear from them again. they're like, okay, bye. Except, I mean, you know, we have some, of course, will text us or whatever, but I'm like, wait, now that we know what college you're going to, we still have so much to say to you because this is just the beginning. And we, in our practice, we call it solo expedition. It's like early, middle, and late. Early is that freshman, sophomore. Middle is junior, where you're just in it and on it. Seniors, when you're kind of transitioning more towards that independence. And then our students get in and they're like, okay, bye, we're off. I'm like, wait, hold on. Like, you've got to pick a roommate and what are about the learning labs and the peer mentors. And we don't get too much into that when we're doing college visits because they're taking in so much. None of that has meaning to them yet. So
Well, that's why College Scoops is here, Laura. So any of your former students, clients that are listening, come on. And as a College Scoops ambassador, and we call them Scoops Insider, we spend a lot of time. I know I mentioned this to you. You know, when people share, when students share information to College Scoops, they're doing it because they want to de-stress the process for high school students and make it easier for them. But we spend a lot of time with our ambassadors too. We recommend and endorse them on LinkedIn. We
mm,
really are all about, we built a student ambassador, a college internship program too. Many of these students said, well, can we do something else to help College Scoops grow? So we started a college internship program. We have between 3 and 30 students at any given time. 100 students apply to our program every year. It's a paid internship program. Students can get involved and learn what digital media is like, you know, help us if they're an English major. They come on and help us, you know, produce really valuable content. So it's all about giving back to and helping to de-stress the process for high school students that we know are trying so hard to find a place where they will thrive. And that's why our College Schools platform has grown to not only help students when they're in looking at colleges, but when they're in, come on board, become a College Scoops ambassador, apply to our internship program, and then we work a lot with, you know, experts like yourself who say, okay, if you have a former student, we would, you know, co-sponsor our videos with you and share that information and help these students on LinkedIn, um, endorsing and recommending them and helping them with their their next adventure, which is, you know, transitioning into corporate life or their
yeah.
next stage of academic life.
That's great. Well, I can't thank you enough. And in the chat, you will see that Moira has kindly given anyone who is a member of the parent community at e.Merging a $20 off the $99 annual membership, which I think if people, whether you're going on trips or not, I think is highly valuable. So I just thank you so much for your time and apologize for the run out in the middle of our session, but
No
thank you
worries.
for everything, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks so much. And thanks
Okay,
everyone. Reach out if you have any questions. Thank you, Laura.
okay, bye.
Bye.